Go ahead.
Okay, so trying to think like where to start.
Okay.
um, so yesterday I talked to you. Um, we discussed about things that pending.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so few I think a few days ago, well 2 days ago, we did the MRI. We yesterday we sent what we call it's a test. The abbreviation is SSPE. It's really to look at um, activity in the brain,
Mm-hmm.
and there's also a blood test that we send out um, outside Renown, yeah, and that won't be back until 3 or 4 days. I was told. I think it's until Monday or Tuesday, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And all this test that we do is really trying to what we call prognosticate. It essentially means, is it going to help us determining
Mm-hmm.
whether he's going to wake up or not, right?
Oh,
Because
okay.
the
Mm-hmm.
the goal is to see the the chances, the probability that he's going to wake up,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
We all know that his heart stopped at one point.
Mm-hmm.
He died at one
Mm-hmm.
point. 10 minutes, and then he got
Get
heart
revived.
back. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just step back a little bit here. Brain is a very sensitive organ,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so sensitive such that um, if you if the tissue, if the brain tissues or brain cells lack oxygen, it started to die. Once it die, it won't come back.
Mm-hmm.
So the longer it lacks oxygen, the more cells will die, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the more cells die, the more
Damage.
the more
it will-
damage it occurred from lack of oxygen, and so that's bad. And then the more damage it is, the chance of the person to wake up it's smaller and
It's
smaller.
slimmer.
Okay, so we're talking about chances, like probabilities.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why brain injury is like a spectrum. There is a mild spectrum, there's a
Mm-hmm.
very severe spectrum. The severe one is when all the cells die. The whole brain die, it's not functioning. We call it brain death.
Yeah.
And that's equal to death. Like, even though the heart's still beating, at
Beating.
some point it will die too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then the very mild form is like when you have concussion. When you play sports, you get hit your head, you're forgetful a little bit, but you can still function, you can still talk, but you might forget things
Mm-hmm.
because there's some brain damage there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a mild form, there's a severe form, and there's things in the middle. Now, this is the gray area. So there things in the middle is when you somewhat, you know, your brain is still functioning, but at different areas, because
Mm-hmm.
brain is very complex, at different areas, and some areas may not function. The areas that control
Movement, maybe.
movement, for example, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Speech. Yeah.
Right, because brain control upper movement, lower, me talking, you receiving, eyes, you're looking at, you're breathing. There's so many activities that
Mhm.
brain controls, and each one of those activities control at certain areas in the brain. So if you have, so for example, if you have a stroke,
Mm-hmm.
certain areas, when you have a stroke, not all brain has stroke, like parts of it.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that damage area is, causing people not to be able to move.
Mm-hmm.
It could be the left, could be the right.
Mm-hmm.
People can even alertness, like me being alert and awake and understanding you. The same for
Mhm.
you, vice versa. Recognize your environment. That's also a particular area in the brain. So, so how do we know which areas are not working,
Okay.
which areas are damaged,
Yes.
and how do we know how much damage has been done?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, you can't
Mhm.
really quantify it like um, getting an imaging. The imaging So this is why we have a lot of like tests.
Mm-hmm.
Some tests only check one thing. Some
Mhm.
tests only check one. It's not like global.
The whole thing. Yeah.
The more accurate test is really
Res-
examination.
Yeah.
His response.
Response. Yeah.
If he opened his eyes and then understand you and you say yes or no,
So at least you know that that part
that
is not
part of the
affected.
brain is working,
Uh-huh,
yeah.
that part is not. Yeah.
Reflexes
Mhm.
like blinking. You know,
Mhm.
us like you know how like when you sleep in a dark room when you turn your lights on and you like started to because that's your brain too.
Mm-hmm.
Coughing, breathing.
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
you're not thinking. I mean, you're breathing, but your brain controls it. So, so that's what we look for when we
Yeah.
examine.
Mhm.
So for him, if you see him, he's breathing on his own.
Yeah.
So the part of the brain that controls
Just the
breathing is
breathing
working.
is working. Yeah. So at least
He
that part.
coughs.
Mm-hmm.
He blinks. If you touch his cornea, you would like trying to close it. That's reflexes.
Mm-hmm.
So parts of the brains that control those reflexes working.
Okay.
Now there are other parts of the brains that
That- mhm.
also control other things. Now he doesn't wake up. He doesn't open his eyes. So the suspicion that we have, high suspicion that thing's damaged.
Yeah.
And that's not uncommon to see when you have brain that's lack of oxygen. That's usually up here. That's the
Okay.
part that controls alertness,
Mm-hmm.
awareness,
Mm-hmm.
wakefulness. So the test that we did, now with that background, okay,
Mhm.
with that
Yeah.
understanding, the test that we did yesterday is essentially looking at how your sensation that is picked up on the peripheral, like on your skin,
Fingers.
on your
no.
fingers,
Mm-hmm.
transmitted to your brain. Because there's always constant communication.
Mhm.
If I touch a very hot surface, I'll go like this, right? Because I have a nerve.
Nerve.
Because it's hot, and you know
Yeah.
your brain tells you it's hot. You better,
Yeah. Yeah.
take your finger away. So what we did yesterday, we sort of like induced that pain,
Pain.
and
Mhm.
then it would detect any signal in the brain.
In the brain.
Now, every test is not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
There's tests that is better than the other. It may, so when you have, so we have to be careful when we interpret something.
Yeah.
So this test that we did yesterday, if you don't see any signal, let's say if I like pinch the finger, we didn't see any signal in the brain, that's a bad sign.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually saying, okay, your brain has a lot of
Yeah.
damage.
Mm-hmm.
He's not gonna recover. That's what it means. If it's no signal, if there is signal, if I pinch the nerve, you see a little bit of signal. Unfortunately, it doesn't mean much. It doesn't
Mhm.
mean that yes, there's a brain there. I mean, I'm
The
sorry,
active
there's a signal there.
Mm-hmm.
But is it gonna tell us that the person's going to wake up?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's the limitation of that test.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you don't see signal, we know for sure we get an answer. This is not good.
Yeah.
But if we still see signal,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't tell us anything. It's almost like, okay, well there's signal there. Is that gonna
Mhm.
tell us that he's gonna wake up? And
It's still not enough.
it doesn't tell me anything. I mean, I can't make a conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense so far?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yesterday, when we did the test, it does say there is signal.
Okay.
There is signal.
There is signal.
There is signal. But
There
again,
is signal.
remember,
It
the
doesn't
limitation,
mean-
it
yeah.
doesn't tell me anything whether
If it
he's
is gonna wake up, yeah, that's basically it.
There is a test also, the lab test that we did
Mhm.
yesterday, that would also give us a different information.
Mm-hmm.
So we just try to put pieces together.
Together, yeah.
Okay, sense so far?
Yeah, yeah.
And this lab test in the blood also will tell you, well, if it's high or if it's low. If it's high, is that a good thing, or if it's low, is that a bad thing? If it's high, usually a bad thing.
Okay.
If it's low, it doesn't tell much, but we know it's not really bad.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Mhm.
so that's why we have to be careful interpreting this.
Yeah.
we have to combine the pieces of information with
From different tests.
and with
together.
what we see with him,
Yeah.
how he's gonna respond to all this. So that test, the blood test, won't be back in the next 3-4 days or something.
Yeah. That's the one from Utah, right?
Yeah, is that from
Isn't
Utah?
it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this one, Inolace.
Enolase.
And this is SSCP is one the one I'm talking about.
Okay.
MRI is just a picture.
A picture,
It's like
yeah.
taking a picture.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And,
And that's
you know,
it.
it's- and the picture could be black and white. There's a grayish area. I mean, it's just a different type of pictures. The MRI also didn't really show any signals or any like significant findings
Mm.
that would help me
Mm-hmm.
to say yes, he's gonna wake up or he's not gonna wake up.
Okay.
So it's almost like inconclusive.
Yeah. Okay.
Am I making sense so far?
Yeah.
So overall.